And I'm here today with Gary Dickenson, and Gary is from a country called Latvia, which is in Northern Europe, near the Baltic Sea region. And you can find Gary on his social media at YouTube, as well as Instagram at Baltic Homesteaders. And with that, Gary, thank you so much for joining me today in this interview.
No, it's great to join you, Gloria, and talk about what we're doing here.
Great. So I just want to say a little tidbit to the audience that Gary and I have a long distance between us. Like I said, he's in Northern Europe. So if for any chance we have any technical difficulties, if you lose audio or video for a short moment, please stay with us. Gary's got a lot of valuable information that I think that you'll all really enjoy to hear. So try to hang with us. So, okay, Gary, let's go ahead and get started. So
Right.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and where you were born and where you are today.
So I'm British. I was born in the UK, and I'd been there, trying to think now, 30 odd years, and then I moved out to Latvia, to the capital city, Riga, where I met my wife, and lived up there for 3 years, and then I moved back to the UK, and then more recently, just December last year, or February last year, I should say, my wife came out to care for her parents, and then we decided that we would all move out in December last year to be together. So here we are in Latvia, in the middle of absolute nowhere, with our homestead, and we're loving it.
So if you would go ahead and explain kind of so the audience can get a feel of what your property looks like, what it entails, where is it located, you know, in the vicinity. Are you in a village? Sure. Or are you in like outside the city? If you would just kind of give us a little details about that.
Sure. So yeah, we're 57 degrees north and latitude, and then we are in northern Latvia. We're actually fairly close to the Estonian border, so we've got the beauty of being able to travel back and forth to two countries. And we live in the back and beyond, and a bit further, as I say sometimes. But we have a village that's close to us, and then we're about 5 miles further into the middle of a forest from this village. And this village, well, the parish, I think, has about 1,300 residents, so it's not a very big place anyway. And then
yeah, sorry to interrupt. So what is there in the village or the parish?
So there's not an awful lot in our village. We have a village store where we can get groceries, and a doctor comes sort of twice a week for a morning surgery or something. There's a community centre, and a kindergarten where my daughter goes, and a school. We're quite fortunate that whilst we have a small parish, it happens to be the centre of the main schools happen to be in our parish as well, so that's quite handy. Yeah, and that's really pretty much all we've got close to us.
So you're pretty remote out there then. If you would share, you had told me briefly before that your wife's, where you live, in the home that you live in, that your wife's family had lived in that homestead for some time. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the property that we're in was built 100 years ago. Prior to that, the land, I suppose, that we're on had maybe a summer house. It's very popular here for people to have summer houses. They escape to the forest during the summer. Latvia is a very forested country, and people like to escape to the countryside. So before that, it was a summer house. A permanent house was built about 100 years ago by my wife's grandfather. And my wife's father was just came along a few years later. You know, he was a baby or something. So, and there are around us are ruins from other properties from previous occupants. You know, going back hundreds of years. So we have these sort of stone of the main stone here is dolomite, and it's everywhere, and people use it to build. And there's beautiful sort of different colours of stone, and these dolomite stones everywhere, and they come up through the land through heave, and the process of heave, and they're everywhere throughout the country, and they use them to build. So there's to see these sort of dolomite buildings falling to bits.
And you said they were.
Can all be used.
You said that they were close to 200 years old. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. That couple of these ruins are, yeah. I mean, they would have been previous stables, or that kind of thing. Most dwellings here are built from wood, but the stables and barns they always build from stone. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And what's the weather like there for your growing season?
So we have a short season. The temperature differential is 60 degrees. I'm sorry, you'll have to translate it into Fahrenheit for your American viewers. But so we go from -30 in the winter through to +30, 35 during the summer. So it's a really big difference, big differential. And the growing season is only from about, well, you can still get a frost in sort of late May. So really, summer with greenhouses, it's sort of May through to about now. Really, we're just clearing out the greenhouse now, so quite a short season.
May, June, July, August, September. So about 4 months then, yeah? You have a 4-month growing.
That's good growing, yeah.
Yeah. So I know it's so interesting to talk to you. I've learned so much just in the previous chat we had. You were saying about how your country had gone through not a revolution, but the independence back in the early 90s. Can you just share just a little bit about that? I just want to touch base just a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Latvia is part of the Baltic states, and it was after the Second World War, was freed from the Germans by the Russians, and then that became a Soviet bloc country and was occupied by the Russians until 1992, when it got its freedom under Gorbachev. And Reagan was your president at the time, who sort of negotiated that with Gorbachev, and the country became free together with the other Baltic states and started rebuilding what it had. So yeah, I mean, that's a very, very short history of Latvia's sort of freedom.
But very, very interesting. Yeah. Just a little quick tidbit about you now. What did you used to do for income, and what are you doing now for income?
So my background, predominantly, I'm actually professionally qualified in insurance and loss adjusting. That's my professional background. But many years ago, about 15, maybe 20 years ago, I had the opportunity to go self-employed, and I sort of jumped into marketing, really. And so for the last 20 years, my expertise has been in marketing, predominantly in food and artisan producers. And that was what I was doing in the UK, and I still have a couple of small contracts in the UK, which I can do here through the internet. But really, we're looking about how can we use the land that we've got to generate income. That's obviously the bigger picture, and that one of the obvious one is growing food, organic food, but the other one is tourism. Escape tourism. We have 50-hectare property here. That's about 150 acres, and we've got a forest, and people can escape into the middle of nowhere and just remove themselves from their busyness of life. So that's something we are exploring as well.
I think here in the States they call that there's a term for it, and I can't actually remember what it is. Agriculture never mind. There is a term for it, though. I just can't remember what it's called. But yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Also, you had mentioned about, not to get off the topic, changing topics so frequently, but about you live with your wife and you have a daughter, and you were telling me that your daughter is being raised bilingual. So is that a necessity, or what is the benefit from raising your daughter bilingual in that?
Well, I think the benefit is that she can communicate with all generations in this country. Not everyone speaks English here, although it is, predominantly a second language. And more in Riga, the capital, the second language is Russian still. But I think culturally it's really important that she can speak the native tongue,
I'm
as
so
well as being able to
excited.
speak English.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear that. For parents to promote second languages in children, I think is very empowering. And I just want to say bravo to you for doing that, because it really, I believe, that gives children more of opportunity in life. So good for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good for you. You had also told me that when you were younger, I believe you said it was your father that taught you many skills of working the land, and as you grew and got to be an adult, that you lost a lot of that skill, and you're giving a new birth to that skill and that part of your life now. You want to share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, sure. So wasn't so much skills of the land, but just general. We were brought up to do everything ourselves. So what is commonly known now as DIY. I think back there was, just everyday life. But our father insisted that we service our own car, and he encouraged us to service our own go-karts and make stuff. And I remember decorating and renovating our bedroom as an early teenager, using tools and craft and things like we would have train sets, and he would build the model sort of villages and encourage us to get involved in doing that as well. So it's very much hands-on. Building a shed, maintaining the garden, cutting down trees and whatnot. And then I think as you grow up and your life sort of changes, and you take different paths, and you, particularly me, I wouldn't have said I've had a nomadic life, but I've certainly moved about a lot. You don't sort of put down roots, and you don't have a lot of opportunity to use those skills because there's no permanence to what you're doing. Here, it's every day is just today I had a log pile collapse on me, so I had to fix that and restack the logs. We've been doing a few maintenance bits and bobs around the property. It's kind of every day there's something to do, and you need a different tool, and it's brilliant. I'm loving it.
You definitely have to be a do-it-yourselfer when we're living this kind of lifestyle, don't we?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You have to be completely multi-skilled, yeah.
Because a lot of us, especially you, are so far away from a lot of resources. So
that's right, yeah. You've got to make do with what you've got. You can't pop down the road to get a new plank or something. Here, worst case scenario, we have to cut down a young tree to be able to use it to prop something up, But
right.
We have a lot of props around us, which are previously cut down trees, and we have to use one of those rather than a long piece of timber.
Yeah. Tell me about well, first let me just say, I have so much I want to talk to you about, and we have a certain amount of time, but I just want to refer back to your YouTube channel and tell the audience about your YouTube channel. You are such a phenomenal, I don't know if you were trained in this, but you're really, really a good videographer. And I want to just share that with the audience, and to
Thank you.
Have them go check out your videos. They're so well done. As a matter of fact, I just watched your grandma one. Is that really your grandma doing the pickles?
Yeah, that's how Oma is the Latvian word for grandma. So yeah,
I just watched that video this morning, and it was so well done. I just want to tell you, you're really a good videographer, and very good material, very good content.
Just talk into that just for a minute. It's really interesting you brought that point up, because it wasn't something we spoke about before. But lots of channels produce videos, and some of them produce videos every day. And the first thing is, I don't know how they have the time to do it to start with. But what I desperately didn't want to do was to replicate what every other homesteading channel is doing, and telling what they're doing inside out every day. I wanted, obviously my videography skills come from my marketing, and that's where it comes from. But I just wanted to capture the essence of what we're doing here in a very beautiful way, if that makes sense. And that's what I've tried to do with the pickled gherkins video that you've mentioned yesterday, and the springtime video, and those kind of I didn't want to go down the same road as what other homesteading channels are doing, and that's why our videos are different, and I hope that I can keep it that way.
And yes, you've done a very well job, and you have very good content, and it's beautiful content. So
thank you.
So tell me a little bit now about your gardens. And I seen through video your gardens and your little, not little, they're not little by any means. You have 2 greenhouses that I'm just in awe of how you've built them, and just taken product that you've gotten off the land and build these hoop houses. We call them hoop houses, little greenhouses. I just love your property so much. So tell me what you're growing, and they can go and look at your videos about your gardens, but you grow a lot and it's a beautiful garden.
Sure. So we have, yeah, as you say, we've got a lot of land around us. Predominantly it's forest, but we have some land that we can grow stuff on. We have a main field which we grow potatoes and, well, outdoor stuff that we can grow outdoor: potatoes, beets, beans, cabbage, onions. They're the kind of staples of Latvia, those sort of vegetables. So, but there's also some kale and some more interesting stuff, you know, herbs and dill. And then on what was a second field, when I first started coming to this property, I remember it had stuff in it growing, but it's now been left fallow for about 10 years. We've got our 2 greenhouses, and we've got our labs area. And one of the greenhouses is a modern polycarbonate that we built this year, and the other greenhouse is built from trees which have, you know, they've been cut from the land around us and have the plastic polythene over it it's a more a rustic greenhouse, I suppose you might call it.
I love that.
You know,
I love it. I love it. It's great.
And then our labs area is where we are experimenting with permaculture ways of growing stuff. So this year I've done 2 rows of what's called Ruth Stout method potatoes, and that's essentially just laying hay and a bit of compost on the top of the land, and then planting the potatoes into that. I mean, you literally just put them in and cover them with hay, and they grow. And this, and we've expanded that for next year. We've got now 4 more beds, and the 2 beds that were the potatoes this year have got more compost on top, and we've planted garlic in those. So they're above ground, about 10 centimeters deep of compost, and they've got garlic in for next year. And the other beds, after the winter, we'll flatten down with the hay that's on it, and then we'll top them up with a bit more hay, and then we'll plant potatoes in there next year. And that kind of, it comes under the banner of permaculture, but it's also regenerative agriculture is what it's really called. So the principle is grow soil and grow food. So we're growing soil back onto the soil here is very sandy. It needs a lot more organic matter in it.
That's really amazing. And I was just thinking how the internet has brought the world so close together, because that practice is used in the United States quite often. And I was glad to hear that and see that you're doing these practices so far away from us. So it's interesting what the internet can do.
Sure.
We talked a little bit about sustainability and living so far away from a lot of resources and how that has impacted your life. Let's talk about sustainability on your property.
Okay, so as I touched on a little bit in one of the previous questions, you have to change your thinking, and because you can't just nip out to go and buy something, you have to use what's around you in terms of material. We're surrounded by wood and you know, forest, and we have a large selection of old and new timber, and different, and also it's about learning the properties of those trees, what's best for different applications. I mean, if you go into a shop, you just want a bit of 4x2 and you buy a bit of 4x2. You don't think really of what it's made about and made from, and what are the properties of that tree. And so you have to think about that. You have to learn about the properties of trees. We've really gone big into composting, in making sure that everything that can be composted is composted ready for next year. And you're thinking sort of 12, 18 months ahead. You're planning with the composting that you're making now, making sure that everything is composted that possibly can. It's not just sort of left in a pile somewhere else. It's concentrated, and we've got different types of compost on the go as well. And then there's also obviously the planning of the planting as well, to make sure that you, in terms of the sustainability, beans is a good example where you're planning for green stuff that you want to eat fresh during the summer, but you're also planning for the harsh winter. You need those beans dried off, and the protein for your winter food from those beans as well. So you're making sure you've got enough protein, beans dried for the sort of more hearty winter food as well. So lots of planning, and lots of using natural resources that are around you.
Yeah, planning, I think, is the number one thing, that aspect that as homesteaders we really have to concentrate on, because one thing affects another, and God help us if we're not ready with something, because it can really mess up a whole season. You had told me that you had a 3-year stockpile of firewood, and I was so impressed with that. Of course, you're in a region where you're surrounded with wood, so that is one of your resources. I had said I don't have really a lot of wood by me, and then going back to the permaculture, that wooded area really is an asset for you with permaculture design, because you can do hugelkultur with that wood. We talked about the wood chips, although you don't have a chipper right now. Someday if you did have a chipper, what a great asset all that wood is for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because we live, the benefit that we have at the moment is to our ancestors, or my wife's ancestors, in the trees that we fell or we're felling at the moment are grown probably from 2 generations back. And then we are mandated by the government to, we can benefit from the financial benefit of managing our forests. Obviously, we can sell the wood, but we're mandated then to replant. And it's our, probably not our daughters, but maybe her children's generation that will benefit from those trees that we plant now. And that's, in the zones of our forest, they're all zoned off. They're all different stages, and different generations have planted those. And I think it's really interesting when you think about that you're responsible, you're benefiting, and you're also responsible. And that wood, like you say, is our firewood as well. It's how we heat. When we've got those minus 30-degree temperatures, that's how we heat the house, with the firewood. That's why we have 3-year supply. If there was a terrible accident or something and we couldn't make wood one year, we're planning, and we've got those future years already chopped. It's
a circle of life, and it's very good land stewardship too.
Yeah, stewarding the land, exactly.
Yeah. One of the last things I do want to talk about is about your heating system in the home, and how much in awe I am of that system. You said they put it together 100 years. I said, tell me all the ins and outs of this heating system. I seen it in one of your videos, and you said, well, it was built 100 years ago. So if you would just elaborate a little bit about that. I mean, I wish everybody could have a system like this in their home, like you have. So if you would just share a little bit about that. You said that you had thought that it was something similar that we use in the States called the rocket stove. But it's on a big scale.
Yeah, we have a cooking. First of all, we have a cooking range. We were talking about what it might be called, but it's a wood-fired stove, I think, is the sort of common. So that heats the kitchen area, and then a couple of other rooms which are joined in the kitchen. And then that's a huge mass of bricks and ceramic, and obviously stays warm for a long time. And in the other rooms, where there are adjoining rooms, there's a small fireplace, and it's literally the size of a small sort of laptop screen, you know. It's not an open fireplace like they might have in big sort of grand homes. And you put the logs in, and you start the fire, and then it a bit like a rocket stove, it sucks the air in and makes the rocket sound, and then it burns. The fire then goes up through a sort of zigzag chimney, and around that is a large mass of bricks, and there's then a sort of decorative cover of tiles, and then that mass takes in the heat, and then it then spits the heat out over the next sort of 24 hours. So you light a fire once a day, and then it heats the whole room or two rooms, and those sort of masses are in 2 or 3 different areas of fireplaces that we have. And like you said, everyone's sort of buzzing about the rocket mass heaters, and they're all very excited. But the thing is, it's an old technology. It's over 100 years old. People have been doing it for ages. Yeah. It's now all of a sudden become trendy, our ones aren't quite as efficient as a rocket mass heater, but the principle is very much the same.
Well, that's what I was going to say, the efficiency of that. And if you think about monetarily saving and being frugal, if people in the United States, which have a lot of gas and electric heats, I mean, we spend so much money on heat, although again, we don't have that resource of the wood like you do, but that unit that you have in your home is so efficient. We all need that. So anyways, Gary, it was a great pleasure speaking with you, and I've learned a lot from you today. But I just want to finish up with one last thing. If you can put your experience with homesteading into one word, what would that be?
It's a really interesting question. I guess the word would be maybe different. Would be a good word, because it is the life. I was thinking about this, the life that we have, and I think, and touching on those other videos that we sort of talk about homesteading channels, and I think sometimes you think that homesteading has become a system. It's a system of living, but actually it's not. It's a way of life. It's very different, and it's a different life to what I've had before. And we as a family are sort of enjoying that. I mean, there's so many words you could use, but I think different.
Of course, there's no right, there's no wrong. Everybody looks at homesteading and with a different perspective, and everybody's got a different answer to that. And that's why I do what I do. I love to listen to stories. I love to hear people's feelings and learn new things. And again, thank you so much for this interview. And I know